Okay, so that is, those are some of the things that we have to remember about genre. Now we are going to move on to the next one. But before we move on to the next part of our lesson, I would like first to flush this question for the section FREMANTLE. Alright, so FREMANTLE, this is your question. If you were given the chance to be the president of our country, what changes or improvements would you like to impose on how media must be used in our country? Okay, kung tagaan ka chance maging presidente sa aton country or of the Philippines, anong mga changes or improvements ang imuon mo para maging effective pagid ang pag-use ng media in our country? All right. So answer that, FREMANTLE. I have already told you of what are you going to do with this question. All right. So I hope you have received the message. Okay. All right. So I still have one section, though I think ano na lang, ang FELIXTOWE na lang, wala ko natagaan, right? So i-flash ko naman dire after. Okay, just stand by. Now let's talk about media codes and conventions. Media codes and conventions are the building blocks of all media forms. Ano magamba kita building blocks, sorry. Ano mga kita building blocks? Do amo ni siya class ang do basic form, okay? Though this creates the foundation of all media, okay? Of something. So mga kita building blocks of all media forms. Kumbaga ang media codes and conventions are the foundations kung paano naton i-express or himuon ang different media forms. Alright? So both serve unique purposes for the meaningful experience of the audience and media users. So, kumbaga ang codes and conventions class, these are the manners on how media are expressed or how media are being delivered to the audience or to the media users. Now let's know about codes. Codes or media codes, this pertain, sorry for the wrong grammar, okay? Codes pertain to systems of signs into which meaning is conveyed. So, this one, for example, these are the system of signs. So, mga signs sa mga symbols on how meaning or kung sa diin ang meaning gina-express. Okay? Generally, codes consist, okay, sorry again for another wrong grammar for that. Codes consist of rules of interpretation. This serves as a guide as to how a message can be interpreted and understood by the audience. Codes are divided into three categories. So we have three categories of codes: symbolic codes, technical codes, and written codes. So magamba kita ng mga codes class, ng following ng mga codes na ito, amo ni sa bala class ang aton balang basihan or ang ginagamit sa mga media platforms or different forms of media kung paano nila class i-express ang meaning sa ilang media. Okay? On the other hand, conventions, ano naman ang conventions? Conventions are, alright, are the generally accepted ways of using media codes in a media product. So, amo ni class ang pamaagi kung paano gina-accept ang media, okay, ang media codes. Alright? Ang codes. So, amo ni siya class ang ginagamit, ang conventions ang ginagamit nga ways para i-express ang mga media codes. Later on, we will know about media codes. Hence, codes and conventions govern the way in which signs are chosen and combined. These are all according to the ideas of Nicholas M. Price. Now, let's go and have an overlook or an overview of the different codes and conventions. First one is symbolic codes. Technical codes is the second one, written codes and conventions. Under symbolic codes, we have setting, mise-en-scène, mise-en-scène, okay? This is not mise-en-scène, okay? This is mise-en-scène, 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 right? Mise-en-scène. That's the correct pronunciation of it. It's a French word, that's why it's pretty hard to pronounce that. However, it just means the scene framing, okay, or the arrangement of the scene, or how scenes are arranged in order to present a certain situation in media. Acting and color. So those are all under symbolic codes. Next, technical codes. What are technical codes? Under it, we have camera work, editing, lighting, sound and audio. How about in written codes? We have printed language, spoken language, and in conventions, okay, or the form, or the way, accepted way on how all these codes, ang tatlo nga codes, are being expressed or being delivered to the audience. Form convention, story convention, and genre convention. So we will go deeper into that later on, after we discuss about codes. Now next, we have the three categories of codes. As what we have said, we have three categories of codes. We first discuss the first one, symbolic codes. What is this? It shows what is beneath the surface of what we see. Okay? So, gaano rin siya class? Ang mga symbolic codes, it talks about what could be the message behind, okay, or what could be the content behind the things that we can see with our eyes. Okay? What are some examples? These codes connotes. What do you mean by connotes? It gives meaning. And when we talk about meaning as connotation, it's not an indirect saying of something. For example, I have here a powder. Okay? If I talk about the denotation meaning of powder, it just talks about this is used to heal rashes, or this is used to prevent sweating. So this is what we call the denotation of powder. The denotative meaning of powder. So magamba kita denotative meaning, though ang meaning agad bala exact literal meaning niya agad, kumbaga from the dictionary, for example. However, when we talk about connotation or connotative meaning, it's more than just the literal meaning of something. For example, in my own perception or in my own perspective, this powder connotes or it means beauty because it makes me beautiful, for example. So that's why ang meaning niya sa powder for me, ang connotative meaning niya for me is beauty. So that is connotation class. Okay? So ang muna class ang symbolic codes. It connotes, it gives indirect meaning or symbols or symbolism. It connotes rather than explicitly stating the meaning of the media message. For example, a red rose may be used symbolically to convey romance, right? Or clenched fist may be used to communicate anger. So those are symbolic codes. Magamba kita, for example, mag-ubra ka sa infographics, di ba? Hindi mo yung pag-ipakita mo, kay, di ba, it's just ang infographics, class, it's just expressed in a paper. So, sa print media siya. So, magamba kada karon ibutang mo kitang tsura mo, gahulag nga, very angry kagid nga gamba, kagid nga aking-aking kagid. So, mabutang mo na ito, mahulag-hulag na dayan sa papili mo tsura? Of course, no. So, paano mo siya, class, ipabutyag or i-express or i-deliver ang message nga angry ikaw? For example, or angry ang imong concept, or there is anger sa imong topic. So, butang ka lang klasang ga-fist nga kamot. This is already symbolic code. Okay? So, symbol na sa black class kay ga-symbolize siya sang kaakig. Then, ang red rose ko no, right? So, red rose, yeah, for example, paano mo mahambal nga romance, kinahanglan may couple gid na dira. For example, ma-create ka sang film poster. Would you really, for example, pwede man actually nga may duwa ginada ka character, for example, or mga tao nga ara dira. And that is to convey message man gapon. Pero in the symbolic code, okay, symbolically, what can you use to express romance without using characters? You could actually use just a rose. A rose lang kung ibutang mo sa film or sa ano mo da. Ibutang mo da sa mga film poster. So, ara na dang rose. It creates romance already. Okay? Or sa video naman, for example, ang cross sa video, bala? Ang cross, it could sa film, for example, nag-focus, nag-span imo camera. This is a camera, for example. So, nag-span ang camera mo, tapos this is the cross. Okay? So, hinaano ko lang class. For example, diri ang una-una mga scenario sa imong film, ma-create ka sang gusto mo ipabutyag that there is death, okay? That is happening, or there is death that happened sa imong film. Okay? So, una-una mo nga class, una-una mo nga gusto mo nga makita gid sang tao is ma-express mo ang death. Okay? So, kinahanglan may napatay gid doa mo na, kinahanglan gid na literal nga napatay gid. Pwede man actually because to make things clear gid, pero pwede ka mag-class kagamit symbolic codes, right? So, cross lang, for example, dira ang camera, muning camera, so mo nang cross dira. So, ma-span dira ang camera, or matupong dira ang camera, or span or tupong. So, matupong dira ang camera, then that's it. Okay? It now creates a message of death. I hope you're getting my point. Next, costume, ari sa class, ang mga symbolic codes nga makita naton. Sa different media, hindi lang sa film, hindi lang sa film, hindi lang sa video bala class, hindi lang sa print media or sa mga infographics or sa picture, pwede man siya actually sa literature. Alright? Ang makagamit kita sa mga symbolic codes. Or, ang ginatawag din sa black class ng mga symbolic codes or ang pag-frame naton sang aton nga mga sang scenario or sang scenes, okay, pag-arrange naton sa mga scenes which we call mise-en-scène, okay, mise-en-scène. Okay, so these are some examples of symbolic codes in costume kuno: realism, escapist, time, period, age, social class. Okay, so revealing genre conventions, low-high production values, national, regional identity. So sa costume makita dapat ina class sa mga symbols nyo. For example, sa status, sa role, sa occasion, mabalaan mo dayon directly nga imol-imol ang isa ka character, for example, sa isa ka literature. Kaya ginsulat mismo sa author dira sa literature that the character has a very morbid nga, or magamba kita morbid, do kalain bala iya nga do kalain iya nga appearance, okay? So, amo na class makita na sa costume dayon. So, if amo nang mabasa sa reader dayon, ma-assume siya or ma-create some meaning, connotative meaning sa iya nga mind nga ang character is evil, right? Or daw very terrifying or horrible gid katami nga itsura, right? So, wala makugamba nga tanang nga evil, horrifying ang itsura, ha? Tuwa ko bala hindi evil, pero hindi horrifying siya. Okay, next. Space, depth, proximity, juxtaposition, size and proportion, technical manipulated. Okay? So, these are some of the symbolic codes na pwede natin balaklas magamit. Okay? Or these are some of the things, gali, for example, or aspects of media na pwede natin magamit to express symbolic codes. Okay? Magamitan natin symbolic codes. Example, sa lighting and color. Right? For example, sa lighting and color, mambal ka nga ipa-black and white mo lang ang certain scenario because bin-black and white mo siya because it basically, it can talk about the past events that happened already. Okay? So, dito na siya. So, black and white mo siya. So, ma-assume ang imo nga audience that this took place before or in the past. Okay? So, that's how we use symbolic codes in media. Settings, lighting and color, body language, objects and props. So, tanana, you could actually use it to create symbolic codes. Next, technical codes. What are technical codes? These are ways are ways, okay, in which equipment are used to convey messages and meanings in a media product. For example, okay, so dali naman niya, mga technical aspect naman niya, okay, of the media. For example, the use of camera, the shot or the manner of capturing a scene, the editing of the scenes, the lighting and the exposure, framing, and depth of fields to suggest a particular meaning in a scene. Okay, so amo ni sila kas ang technical codes, mga ginagamit sa mga equipments sa class, or ways kung paano ginagamit ang equipments or different technology para ma-express ang meaning sa imong media content. Alright? For example, magamit ka sa camera. You wanted, for example, sa sa simple lang sa camera, simple, use of camera. For example, lang mo yung camera, and then, dapat gatubang sa character nga ini, then dapat sa, for example, this is, amuning ka-istorya sa character, aling mouse. Alright? So, assume na may ka-istorya ang character. So, amo ng mouse. Then, this could be the character nga ginaistoryahan. Okay? Nga ginaistorya sa aton nga main nga character. So, dapat ang camera class nakapokus sa aton main character. Then, ang aton nga, kumbaga, dumay ka-istorya siya para mapakita bala class or dumay kitaon ang head, okay? Or ang head or at the back of the character, ang back sa character, dapat sang ginaistorya na dapat makita class sa camera. So, doon mo ni siya. Doon mo ni ang scenario. This is, amo nang ginaistorya, then makita iyang likod sa camera, mo ning camera. Then, ang gaatubang in the front of the camera should be ang gaistorya sa iya. Okay? Sa amo ning character. To symbolize nga may kaistorya gid ang character nga ini. Alright? Ang character nga ini. Kay karon kung wala class, okay? We could lose the technical, the message could not be properly expressed sa audience. Eh, sino kay istorya niya? Hindi ko kabalo kung sino kay istorya niya. So, in that manner, the meaning could be disrupted, okay? Or it could be distorted in a way. Next. Hindi lang sa amo na class, hindi lang sa camera, pero it has a lot of, aspects pa when it comes to technical codes. Example, ang sa types of shot, right? So, establishing shot, long shot, mid shot, CGI technology. Paano mo magamit ang technology, for example, to express your message. Okay? So, pwede ka kagamit mga animation, 3D, genre. So, that would still fall under technical codes. Okay? Sa editing, for example, edit ang transition, ang pag-flash, ang fade to black, for example. Sa sound, amo naman na siya. Sa camera movement, camera angle and lens and time. Okay? Next, written codes. These are the ways in which language and textual layouts are used to express meaning. For example, so ang ginagamit na di class, we take into consideration when we talk about written codes, ang language and the textual layouts. Okay? Kumbaga, ang story, balakas ang flow ng story, what you call this, ang direction. Okay, so diri na di ma-fall sa written codes. Ang screenplay, kung ano dapat ang i-produce nga scene by scene or by scenario. Okay? Or ano i-produce nga situation by scene. For example, the layout of a newspaper, okay, that shows the degree of importance of a particular news compared to the other news on the paper. Captions, titles, credits, subtitles, slogans, taglines, and some other language which are utilized to suggest particular meaning are also considered as written codes. For example, class, di ba maglantaw kami newspaper, makita nyo ginagapon sa headline da, makita nyo in front of the newspaper kid, there is a big nga headline, okay? Dako iya font size, then dolain iya nga font style, okay? Because that is a written code already. Because the author of the newspaper, okay, or the person behind that article, gusto niya i-emphasize na amo gini class ang news that we need to know right away. So dapat ara gid sa front sa newspaper kag dako-dako gid iya nga headline. So that is our written codes. All right? So, next one. So for example, sa mga poster and everything, that text could actually create meaning. For example, ang type of font na ginagamit mo. For example, karon ang imo film. Okay? It could talk about fantasy, it could talk about love. Tapos imong gingamit nga font style karon niya namang gadugo-dugo nga daw vampira. So in that manner, class, it does not match or it is not appropriate as a written code. Alright? Because it will distort the meaning of the media content that you'd like to share to your audience. For example, junk terrorism bill, activism, then gagamit sila class sa mga amuna klaso, kita nyo na, mga symbol, mga punctuation marks, okay? These are textual or written codes. Written codes can be used to advance a narrative, communicate information about a character or issues and themes in the media product. Thus, it helps audience to understand media content better. So, kung may mga emphasis with for example, ginabold gid ang certain nga text or ginakuluran gid. So, in that manner, the written code is there already. Okay, kay ginahambal sa author that you have to read this, you have to be very particular with this because this detail is very important, right? Next. Alright, so before we continue with the different types of conventions, I would like to share my instruction for the section FELIXTOWE. Okay, so FELIXTOWE, look at this. Why do you think media is powerful? Okay, I've already told you the instruction on the earlier part of the video. Okay, so I hope you got that. So section FELIXTOWE, take note of this. As what I said, get a paper and a pencil and a pen. Okay, for you to be able, do not forget always your notebook and your pen when we are discussing, because some of the things that I am saying here are could not be found sa inyong module. Okay, and I hope that you take note of it, because some of the things that I am just saying personally nga akon nga hindi makita sa module nyo could be found sa inyong exam, sa inyong quiz. So para hindi ka malipat, you try to take note of the things nga ginapanghambal ko. And of course, para hindi ka malipat sa mga instruction ko. Okay? Get a notebook and a pen kay para at least mag-guide ka mo, hindi ka mo magbalik-balik lang daw sa video nga ini. Okay? Kasalawa akong sura and tingog, just try to take note na lang habang kalantaw ka mo, ay para at least mabalaan yung balaklas ang pinapanghambal na instruction, hindi ka mo magsala dayon. Alright? So recall lang before we end, kay last na lang ni ang mga conventions naton i-discuss. This is the question for section FELIXTOWE. This one is for FREMANTLE. And this one is for HAMBURG. Okay? So, you try to answer everything. Then, I've already told you the instruction at the earlier part of the video. So, there's no problem. There should be no problem. Okay? Kung paano nyo himuon ina. Alright? So, now we're going to continue. Let's now go to the different types of conventions. As what we said, ang conventions, kung paano siya balaklas i-express ang media, okay, kung paano siya i-deliver. Number one is form conventions. Form conventions are the ways in which media product codes are to be arranged. For instance, ang media product codes, class ha, tumalang tatlo ka code, symbolic, written, and the other one, okay, so tatlo yun na sila class, kinahanglan na natin sila i-arrange, and that would take we will use the form conventions. For instance, the placement of the title at the beginning of a film and the credits at the end. Okay, so that's the form convention. So, pag makita mga conventions, kasi do mga standard bala, okay? Do mga standard ways, okay? Or standard nga mga accepted nga ways kung paano natin i-express or paano natin i-arrange, paano natin i-himuon ang aton media content. Okay, or aton nga mga media codes. Okay? For example, sa muna, sa film. So, dapat ang title sa beginning and the credits at the end. For written codes in newspapers, form convention is applied, particularly through presentation of the masthead or the most important news on the front page and sports news on the back page. So, class, for example, ang conventions naman niya, ang kinahanglan gid or ang standard way gid of layouting or arranging the written codes, especially in the newspaper. Ang masthead ginaklas or ang pinaka-importante nga news could be found at the beginning, okay, of the newspaper. Then at the end of the newspaper dapat dito makita ang sports news. So amo nang conventions, okay? The form conventions are also evident in video games. Usually a tutorial is presented to explain the mechanics of how the game works. So in any video games ninyo nga makita, for example, it is just newly installed na video games. So, basically, may tutorial gina-class on how you are going to play the game. Because that's the convention. That's the form convention. Okay? How the media codes are arranged kay para maintindihan kag para maka-cater sa needs ng audience. Okay? Next, another example would be the continuity of editing. Most video forms follow a set of editing rules and techniques called continuity editing. So tandaan yung continuity editing class ha. Continuity editing, this is applicable solely or exclusively sa mga pag-edit sang videos. Okay? So may mga rules and techniques na dapat sundon. This allows audience to easily understand what is going on in a scene and who is talking to who. Just like what we have tackled earlier with the span of the camera. So, dapat sa plaster sa camera, balakas, for example, para mabalaan sa audience kung ano na class, kung sino, kung masundan nilang istorya, for example, or ang message ng imong video. Okay? Next, how about the story convention? Yes, sir. So, may mga convention man in creating story or narrative. Story or narrative conventions pertain, sorry again for the wrong grammar here, to the elements and techniques utilized by the writer to make meaning in a story. So, when we talk about a story or narrative na convention, it pertains to the elements and the techniques na gina-utilize sa writer para balaklas ma-express niya gid ang meaning sa iyang story. They incorporate characters, setting, plot, and point of view to deliver meaning in the story. Sometimes, class, sa amo na class ang ginambat ng story convention. Ang gina-incorporate, dapat gaobra character. Then, tapos ang personality ng character, ang setting, kung sa diin dapat mahulag ang character, ang plot, ang istorya sa inyong story. And then, and the point of view to deliver the meaning in the story. Anong point of view? Is it in the first person point of view? Is it in the second person's point of view? Or the third person's point of view? So, in that manner, class, all of these factors will fall under story convention. Because, sometimes, kadaan, class, when we talk about importanteng story convention, because if we do not have story convention or mga ginasundan ba lang ways or methods or rules and techniques kung paano kita mag-ubra sa atong story, especially with our media content, there is a possibility, class, nga ang mga characters or ang mga settings, ang plot sang aton nga media content or sang aton nga story, ma-mix up sila, class, and it will create confusion sa imong audience. For example, there's no distinction among all your characters. Tatlo imong characters. Then all of these three, they have the same style in speaking, right? They have the same style, the way they dress. They have the same style, the way they deal with other people, okay, or the way they speak, for example. So in that manner, class, there's no distinction. So if that happens, the audience would have a hard time distinguishing or discriminating who is who, okay? Who is who in the story? Sinong amo ni, sinong amo na, sinong amo to, okay? So because of it, there's no development in the story or in the media content of your story. Okay, so dapat may story conventions kag nga ginasunod. Short stories often develop a theme in a short time frame. Okay, so ang theme or ay napalaklas kumbaga ang concept or ang topic sa imong story, amo ng theme, ga-develop sa class, dapat it will still fall under story convention. So dapat class, sa mga short story, for example, ang theme niya, ma-develop na dayon sa mga writers in just a short period of time. So dapat na-set na. Ina ba lang, for example, class, maubra ka lang sa short story, kinahanglan mo gid class for example, ang character mo would just be about a girl and a boy, which they have superpower. For example, they have been in love because they just met at a party, for example. Okay, you can just start your story in that setting sa party. Kinahanglan mo gid ayhan balikan ang pagkabata sa imong character, kinahanglan ang childhood niya, sang babae ug sang lalaki ang childhood nila, kinahanglan mo gid dito balikan kay para ma-create mo lang ang imong theme. Okay, if you are an effective writer or a storyteller or a story maker in that sense, pwede mo na yung class nga hindi mo na pagbalikan niya. Ang mga linyahan mo lang na iya, ang mga dialogue lang sa character mo would show their lives during sa ilang pagkabata. Because ang bata gani, paano mo ma-express in a very short period of time kung anong theme or story or concept or topic sa imong story. So dapat ma-express mo na siya in a short period of time because that will fall under short story. Okay? Okay lang na iya class nga balikan mo inang pagkabata niya o ang ginasulat mo novel, right? Or ang gina-develop mo nga screenplay or writing article would be about will be turned into a series, okay, or a teleserye, okay lang na iya class. Pero kung mga, for example, short video lang, short film, so dapat you compress the idea as much as possible, okay, kay para at least mabalaan mo, para ma-minimize mo ang time. Alright? However, in minimizing your time, it does not mean na you also limit the essence of your story. Alright? So, dapat ang essence, ang meaning, ang effectiveness ng story mo, ara dayon. So, the challenge would just be, how are you able to express your message given a short period of time? So, that's the challenge right there. Their authors must do this with limited settings and characters. For example, sa short story, one of the ways the author expresses this is through the narrative convention of style or mood. Okay? In this piece, the convention plot is also utilized by the author to develop this idea. Characterization is also utilized to explore the theme in the narrative. So, dapat ang characters, these elements when together combined, kay kulang ang word, when they are together combined, okay, when they are combined all together, it must create an effective portrayal of the theme of deception or any other theme pa or particular story or particular na concept sa imong story. Alright? Okay, hindi siya pwede ma-pause. Kaya ma-pause ako tani. Okay? Pero padayon ta. Next is the genre convention. What is genre convention? A genre convention is the generic structures of a story, character and story arcs, and story principles. Genre conventions are closely linked with the audience expectation. For example, sa mga Western na mga film, it is conventional to have heroes wearing capes, right? To show the character's superpowers. So, mga class, sa audience, ginaset ang convention dapat may relatedness with the audience expectation. For example, ginhimo yung film niya in the Western ng mga countries sa America, so they can express their own for example, their own interpretation of heroes if someone wears a cape, okay, or kapa. So that's genre convention because amo nang gina-expect la sang audience nga makita. Gina-expect sang tao makita or ang nakagisnan nila balaklas nga convention or ilang nga tradition kung nakakita sila sa tao nga may cape, that's a hero. So, kung mag-ubra sila dapat film, okay? Kung may mag-ubra dapat ang mga producers ng film, dapat ang ilang film, ang ilang kung mag-create sila, kung mag-talk sila about heroes, dapat ang heroes nila may kapagid. For example naman, kung may, sa ato naman niya sa Philippines, yung genre convention naton, kung may story kita about love, there is always a third party, right? So, there is always kabit. So, there is always a third party in the relationship. So, amuna klas ang gina-expect ng audience. So, amunang gin-cater sang media producer. So, amunang ginhatag nga message sang media producer or gingamit nga tool sang media producer. Ginbutangan nila mismo sang kabit kay para ma-fulfill or ma-satisfy ang expectations ng audience. And all of those concepts will fall under genre convention. Another example is in action. Okay? Another example is when there is an action film. Sorry again for this one. Okay? Another example is when an action film, kung sa setting niya, is in urban places, incorporating quick editing of scenes and using loud sound effects of explosions or gunshots to project intense action in the film. Alright? So, ang gina-expect, because ang genre mo ba is action film. So, ang gina-expect ayan sa imong audience kasi hindi makakita. Gina-expect ayan nilang makakita dila sa mga fairy-fairy, makakita dila sa mga love story and everything. Pwede man na, pero that's just a side story or a fraction lang of the whole theme or the whole essence of your story or your film. So, dapat makita gidya, action gidya. So, amo nang gina-expect sa audience, right? Next, genre conventions are categorized and applied to express effectively all important elements applied in a media product. This helps audience to effectively experience and understand the structure of a story just how the makers of the media product want it to be. Okay? So because para balakas mag-meet halfway ang audience kag ang media producers, dapat ma-meet sila halfway kag dapat both of them would understand the meaning of the media nila na gina-engage in. Alright? So dapat clear ang message or ang media content sang gaobra sang media. Then dapat enough ang knowledge sang audience para mabalaan or ma-receive or ma-accommodate ang message sang media na ginobra sa mga media maker. So, para mag-meet sila sa tunga. So, in that manner, mag-intindihan sila and there is a successful transfer of communication or the process of communication has been successful if that is the case. So, information is successfully relayed. Alright? So, did you understand something in our discussion today? I hope that you really understood something because after this, I will open the assessment part so that you could answer already for lesson 6. Alright? If you have any questions regarding the lesson, pagid nga gusto nyo pagid mabalaan, do not hesitate to PM to personal message me, okay? To message me personally so that I would be able to attend to your question or to your queries. Alright? You could as long as it's just wala ko siya na-mention sa akon diri nga lesson and hindi siya about sa mga activities nga obrahon nyo, masabat ako sa inyo sang maka as much as I can. Pero base hindi ko makasabat man, kaya base busy man ko, pero I will do my best. Kung ang question mo or ang concern mo, ang pamangkot mo is about the lesson itself, ang mga concepts sa lesson, pero kung about sa mga activities diri, anong answers, anong deadline and everything, sanong deadline sang amuni amuna sang amuni amuto, no, I will not answer you. You will not expect my answer. As what I've said, isin talang kamo sa messenger if that is the case. So hindi lang maglain buot nyo because I've already given you instruction very clearly using this video, okay, sa YouTube, and I hope you have understood that. Alright, you got that? So I think that's the end of our discussion. I hope that you have learn something and that you will do all the instructions I have given you according in the content of this video. Alright, so thank you so much for your time and thank you so much for watching. And good luck, God bless, and keep safe always. Goodbye, FELIXTOWE, FREMANTLE, and HAMBURG. I hope you learned something.